So we're speaking today with Valerie Deering, the Nappy Headed Poet, who's an educator, written and spoken word artist, graduate of Cass Technical High School here in Detroit, alumna of Marygrove College, a Detroit native, and a member of the Metropolitan Community Church of Detroit. Val's work centers around love, life, social justice. And Val has additionally performed her works as a featured artist of the Marygrove College Legacy event and grand reopening of the Marygrove College Internet Archive Library. She has also performed in spoken word venues here in Detroit and in Chicago, Illinois. So we welcome you, Valerie Elaine Deering, to our chat. The first question I have for you today is ask you the question, why the nappy headed poet? Isn't that a derogatory term?
Well, it used to be. Used to be one of the worst things you could be called as a black girl, young black woman, growing up was nappy headed. It seemed to indicate that somehow you were unkempt, didn't take care of yourself, didn't care how you looked. And that primarily based upon the images that we saw all the time, straight hair, jump in the shower, wash your hair and just be all dolled up. And days and hours that we spent in the beauty shops, not that that's always a bad thing, but the mental things that did to you in terms of your own being able to recognize your own beauty. And once when I was teaching school, there was almost a fight because one young man called another young man's mother nappy headed. So I was looking around the room and I said to the young men, well, it looks to me like everybody in here got a nappy headed mother, including me. I wanted to be able to celebrate all of who I am, including the texture, the frizz, and the unique qualities of my hair without feeling uh, like I was less than. So in many ways, and when I went to school, when afros first came out, and I got my first afro, I was a freshman in college. My mother did not speak to me for months, and she said to me what mothers back then would say to you. She said, "You're not white. You better do something with that hair. Them white boys and girls, they can do this, and the white boys can grow their hair long, and then they gonna cut it off, and they gonna get a good job. Not you." Finally, all of that turned around. And one day, when I was in grad school, I was sitting in a class and we were talking about the children, the, the poverty of spirit of the children, the poverty of spirit of the mothers that they did not have to give to the children. And, usually that's Black children that we're talking about. And so I wrote this poem right then. I don't know, I did not change the name of it in the book, but I called it Notes from a Nappy Headed Sister. And when I got to thinking about how I would describe myself, I decided that I really would describe myself as the nappy headed poet. Uh, 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 Freeing my hair is freeing. It's a sense of freedom, a sense of me. This is who I am. I'm a nappy headed poet and storyteller. Valerie Elaine Deering.
I love it.
From God.
So claiming your own source of power and self-worth by honoring the nappy headed. among us. On your acknowledgement page, you also pay homage to your grandparents, your parents, siblings, school friends, and your beloved spouse, Belinda. Why was it important to you to mention these people and your back in the day gang?
because because of the goodness that they put in my spirit. My grandfather and grandmother supported knowledge, education. Grandpa used to pay us for good grades. And he would always say that whatever you lose, you can't lose your knowledge. Grandma would always reach up under her apron and pull out a $5 or $20 bill when I was in college and get up to me and tell me how proud she was of me and talk about how all we needed in life was to be able to love each other. And what they also gave me, my grandma and grandpa on my mama's side, Bud and Lizzie, was a sense of the rainbow nature of our being. The black race is the only race where you can find every color of the rainbow, from light, bright, near white to dark chocolate. And I saw it embodied in their family, from my mother's skin color, some of her and her brothers and sisters, to our black prince, who was like chocolate, came from the same two people. So it gave me an appreciation of our culture color wise, and not to be judgmental about that. My Belinda puts up with my foolishness, my stubbornness, and somehow manages to find a way to love me in spite of all of that. My back in the day gang, we grew up together in a time where you could truly envision a beloved community. We came through during although there was discord, though there were riots, although there was a lot of confusion, we still had a sense that there could be a beloved community. I, and some of them have survived along this journey in life with me, that we still can call that forward to give us hope to continue. Now, who else did you ask me about?
I spoke with the people on your acknowledgement page, your
Yeah,
back in the day game.
my mama and daddy.
Uh huh.
Oh, Bill and Evelyn. Um, my mother and father gave us love unconditionally, even when they didn't understand. They kicked my butt. They gave me a sense of responsibility. They gave me a yearning to know more and to do well. They gave me food for the journey. They gave my spirit food for the journey. Our house was always filled with music and books and, discussions about current events. And that's another thing that was impressed upon us at a very early age, the importance of education. My mother used to talk about her growing up and my grandfather reading the newspaper, who had a very limited education. And she would say that it might take him all day to read that newspaper, but he read it from the front to the back. You got to know what's going on in the world, and you got to participate in your civic duties. They gave me a strong sense of that. My father was in the union, so he was an activist, and um, He was always looking for ways to do better. He was always, my father was kind of, what would I call? He was like, he didn't pass judgment on people simply because of looks or preconceived notions. He always gave people a chance. He had a open heart, even though you would not think that if you ever met my dad, you would you would think he was gruff and but no, he really had a tender heart and he had a love for mankind. So I got that from him. I got uh I got we fall down but we get up from him.
So, do you have a poem that you would like to read that pays homage to these people who have inspired you so um, and gave you the desire to grow and develop and accept yourself?
Well, let me see here. I marked a few poems that I would like to read.
Okay.
When I think about my father, I think about this poem, Men. Um, and that's what it's entitled, Men. The men I know who have loved me in life are men who are men, willing to pay the price. Men of color who love their mothers. Men who strive to keep family alive. Men who work, do their share, providing for the families in their care. Grandpa, daddy, uncles, cousins, nephews, and brothers too are men who are doing what men are meant to do, caring, sharing, trusting God. Men who love, dance, and sing. Men unafraid of doing their thing. Men who grow strong when life gives wrong. Men who are examples of the best there are to sample. White chocolate, dark chocolate, sweet, brown sugar too. Long, tall, short, round, sweet, bitter, sweet. Fall down, get up, keep marching on. Whole men, broken men, sad men, confused men, fallen men. Keep looking up. Men, fall down, get up, try again, get it right, stand fast in the night. God gives you power to shine your light. Working, hustling, praying. God blesses you for staying. Men.
And that's beautiful. That speaks to all of the experiences that men, certainly men of color, but I'm sure all men have gone through to make certain that they are who they need to be. You also spoke of your experience in college and coming into self knowledge or ethnic awareness. Um, there's some poems that you've written that address the uh, struggle for race relations in this country. Do you have one that you'd like to read for us?
Now let's see here. Ooh, some from the struggle. I was not sure exactly um, where I wanted to go with
Okay. Well,
the
why don't you?
struggle. Um, well, okay. I'll do the Freedom Time poem.
Okay.
I have some poems I have not yet published, though, that would speak more to that, but I'll do Freedom Time.
Okay. Okay.
Once upon a time, the life of a Black person did not seem worth a dime. This mostly due to the abuse and indignity we have suffered through. Bull Connor, George Wallace, and the Ku Klux Klan wanted us to believe we were less than human. Three-fifths of a man, the Constitution once said, trying to keep us all from moving ahead. Quietly desperate, we went on to show all those folks it is just not so. They found out as time moved on, indignity heaped on us eventually comes home. Check it out. You will see when cut with a knife, we all will bleed. So this is what I say to you. Give everyone their just due, because sooner or later we will pay when called to face our judgment day. Learn the history, learn it fast, or we are doomed to repeat the past. And it just occurred to me, Pastor Hattie,
Yes.
that yes, I want to do this poem, White Privilege.
Okay.
When you, I wrote this poem in the 60s, 70s, and on into the 80s. A lot of times we didn't have the language to describe our experiences in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't adequate. White privilege is a recently coined term to describe a set of behaviors that have been going on since Plymouth Rock landed on us, as Dick Gregory would say.
Yes.
So I wrote this poem called White Privilege. When you stand on your whiteness, and that's your major claim, you bring shame and derision to God's holy name. God is the author of all that is, beginning, middle, and end. God created this beautiful black skin, red, brown, and yellow too. Who are you to demean, cheat, and steal just so you and your white skin can have your will? Greed, rape, murder, enslavement is the poison you brew. Your whiteness becomes darkness, hate and despair, sucking all the goodness out of God's air. God made this world and all it holds. Don't let your white skin kill your soul.
Wow. That's powerful. It addresses a lot of issues we're facing today. Um, and as you say, it's a recently coined term. White.
Yeah, because you remember eh, coming through in the 60s. Well, first of all, let me say going to Cass was a different experience. I remember riding the Finkel bus to Cass High School, and the Finkel bus would come down Finkel to 14th and head on to downtown to 2nd Avenue to Cass. And it picked up white and black kids along the way. And I remember all the black kids would have their little Stokely Carmichael Black Power book stuck on the top of your stack of books. You was they would call what they call woke today was consciousness back then, was, becoming aware of who we were and all the things that had been hidden from us. And one of the most dramatic not turnarounds, but blossoming of a flower of knowledge was to see Dick Gregory. And that was the time when he was writing books and his comedy had turned into very deep social commentary. So a lot of what we are seeing today, I love because it's a new generation of awareness that has encompassed a wider audience. We always have had our allies, but our allies have increased. We had the Berrigan brothers that marched with King. We had Rabbi Abraham Herschel. We had the nuns. We always had that, but we've widened that sphere And I just think that, even with all the things going on, that is what gives me hope for our future, for the future of the children, for the future of the country, for the future of love, for the future of mankind, humankind.
You've written human. Yes. You've written several memorial poems in this volume, uh, A Song for Mama. Um, you've written poems in honor of one of our local judges, a renowned singer, and a couple of civil rights activists. And one activist that you mentioned is a Michigan native, and her name was Mrs. Viola Liuzzo. I'm listening to you speak of you coming woke to your Black consciousness and the era that molded you into who you are. I want to know why you felt she should be included in these pages.
Hmm. I felt that she could be included. Remember, I spoke earlier of being able to see the rainbow of Black people. Well, I for sure know it's some white people in there. Some, white people. My
Right.
mother's great grandmother was a white woman who married an escaped slave. So
Hmm.
I see the humanity of people across the board. And now that's another thing I want to mention about the experience at Cass, that at that time, it was still a much more diverse school than it is now in terms of not only racial makeup, but geographic makeup in terms of where the students came from. I was about 15 years old when Viola Gregg Liuzzo went to the South, and her husband was in a union. So she came from an activist kind of background there. And it struck me like, damn, this was so important to her that she left her children. Do you know what I have no children. I can only imagine what it would take for a mother to leave her children and say, I got to go help this. The Bible says greater love, a person could have no greater love than to lay down their life for their friends. And if that is not the love of God, I don't know what is. So that's what inspired me to write this poem about Viola Gregg Liuzzo. And I can only imagine the trauma that her children had to suffer through, because we know that they were not necessarily among allies in terms of their own culture. And she died giving a Black man a ride, I think, from helping people to register to vote, the same fight going on today. And I just, that touched my spirit, so I couldn't rest until God gave me some words to say about her.
Will you read it for us?
You sure will. Viola Gregg Liuzzo, in memory. Behold, cometh a dreamer. Let us slay her. She left her home to help humankind become more kind, and they killed her. Says she asked for it. With a Black man after dark, she made an easy mark while helping humankind become more kind. Selma, Alabama, in 1965, dangerous to strive to live a dream. I remember her name, Viola Greg Liuzzo. She left her babies, all she had known, to help humankind become more kind, and they killed her. The KKK had their way and killed her. Remember her name, light a flame, help humankind become more kind, like Viola Gregg Liuzzo.
And
So, if we could just take a little of that with us, we would all be so much,
so much better.
yeah,
Mrs. Liuzzo happened to be the only white woman who was murdered by the Klan for Black civil rights. So we do honor her because she went to give us what she already had, voting rights and privileges. Thank you for that. Um, in the final pages of this volume, you wrote an ode to your own mama.
hmm
And the subtitle for this book is um, Songs for Mama, Volume 1. I'm curious, does this mean that Volume 2 and maybe Volume 3 is in the works?
definitely. I got a lot to say, and it's my time to say it. If not now, when? Um, I hope I don't get emotional about my mother.
She's mother. It's allowed. And she meant a lot to you. Um, and if you are feeling too tender to read that poem that bit of prose that you've addressed to Mama, we can understand that. I think it's a wonderful thing that you've poured your love and you've poured your life's experience and you've poured your zeal, not only for your people, but for all people. It's not a solitary thing.
No, and but I want to say this about the title because people that have been uh, that have known me have usually known my family, and they always ask me why I entitled this a song for Mama. Well, I have four sisters and a brother, and there was my mother. My daddy always got first billing. So this was my turn to give first billing to my mother. That's why it's called Song for Mama. And she was the one that would always ask me to write a poem for something, or, you know, uh, she loved to read. My mother loved to read. She loved to be up on current affairs. And I talk about it in the poem. And the music that she blessed our house with. We laugh, my sisters and I laugh today, and we talk about, we could always tell how Mama was feeling by the music she played. She put on some Dinah Washington, Daddy was in trouble. But yeah, that's my mother, and she continues to be the wind beneath not just my wings, but my sisters and so many other people that I probably don't even know. We have this developmentally disabled brother that the doctor said would not live to be 5 years old. My mother was relentless in seeking ways to care for him and ways to promote his well-being. Well, God willing, my brother will be 60 years old in September. That it takes an extraordinary woman. My daddy said it when we had a 50, 50th birthday party for my brother. My father said, I don't know very many people who would give up their lives to care for somebody in the way that my wife has. And he told the honest to God truth. But I'm going to give him a clap too, because there are not many men that would have been difficult for most men to accept and stand strong. So he and my mother really did make a team in caring for my brother. And now that they're both gone, my sisters and I are carrying on that legacy of unconditional love and continuing to care for my brother who is doing well. I wish I had a picture to show you. You would be amazed.
So you have gained a lot from your immediate family, and you talk about your mother's love for music. We know that you're a music fan as well. So I think you've
Oh, yeah.
inherited that spirit from her as well.
Yup.
Would you mind reading your ode to your mother?
Okay. I think I could do it
You
now.
can do it? Okay.
But, there's references to a lot of songs in here that you kind of, some people may not get it, and I'm not sure that uh, we have the time for me to explain all of these songs to you, but I'm going to do this. Evelyn Bryant Deering, in memory, January 1st, 1929 till April 24th, 2020. Mama dearest, sister nearest, intellectual fierceness, despite this bitter earth and the days when she drowned in her own tears and carried on like mamas do, making something from nothing, a black mama stew. When God sent the man with the Sunday kind of love, it was magic through September in the rain. Her love remained steadfast. Yeah, Evelyn, opening arms welcomed in family and friends, all the while firm, steady, and able, holding on to God's unchanging hand, telling that hard headed man, try a little tenderness, because she loved him for sentimental reasons. Barbecued goat, hog head cheese, crowd of peas, throw in a little okra too, seasoned to perfection with a heart full of love. Through Mabel Black Label and that Doer's White Label. Don't forget the milk that went with it too. Evelyn, Mama, she's helped me laugh, dance, sing, and grow. I want you to know that she's my shero, and so much of the good I've grown to be. Forever and always, the wind beneath my wings.
That's a beautiful tribute. And how many of us have had mothers that have uh, supported us and encouraged us? And for those who've not had that experience, we can live through your poetry and feel the love and the nurture that has brought you to where you are today. You've been our poet laureate for MCC Detroit, and for many occasions um, we've been blessed by the reading of your poetry.
And I've been blessed by being able to read the poetry. I've been blessed, and I want to thank you all for that.
Happy to share what you have with each other and with the world. Um, I'm going to open this for questions for others. I don't see any questions currently in the chat, but I'm going to invite you. If you have any questions for Val, if you would please write them in the chat, and we'll make sure she's able to address them. Once again, let me tell you that there will be a limited number of signed copies of Val's book available at MCC Detroit come some Sundays, and you can collect the books after service is over. Our services begin at 11:30 at 205 North Main Street in Clawson, and uh, when they're gone, they're gone. We might be able to twist your arm into securing a few more, but the cost of the books is $17.99, and as I said, each volume will be signed by our author, our poet laureate, Valerie Deering.
So here's a poem that I really want to read. I want to talk about why I wrote this poem.
Okay.
Talked about me writing poems in memory because that is one of the things that I like to do. Not just to write a poem in memory, but to try to capture the essence of someone.
Mhm.
And this Whitney Elizabeth Houston poem. Whitney Houston was not my favorite artist, but I could see that Whitney Houston had such a divine gift.
Mhm.
And I saw what the world did to her. We said we loved her, but we sucked every bit of badness and talked about her and defiled her name. And in defiling her name, my opinion, we defiled her gift.
Hmm. How do you mean that?
Because life is never this or that. There are always shades of gray. And I think that Whitney struggled mightily with her sexuality. She had the mother that was like, oh no, not my child. And we couldn't let her give her gift and be happy with the blessing that gave us and leave her alone. What is Whitney doing? Oh, she shouldn't be marrying Bobby. Oh, look at her, all cracked out on them girls. Look at that. Bobby did that. What is Whitney? Oh, man. But she sang this one song. And the song really is called Lover for Life. And I used some of the lyric in the poem, and this is what I came to me. We heard the testimony. We saw the evidence. It was a crime of passion in every sense. She sentenced us to be her lover for life, sentenced by the notes, the pitch, the emotion, snapshots in slow motion. Despite the drama, the ish, the mucked up kind of sish, she convicted us with a note, anointed, divinely ordained. Whitney Elizabeth, sophisticated, classy, grown ass sassy, a broken, flawed vessel, a miracle who gives good love. We heard the testimony. We saw the evidence. Death don't win because love don't end. A miracle of love sent from above. Human, broken, who will always love us with the note because she was anointed, divinely ordained. We heard the testimony. We saw the evidence. Yeah, we couldn't accept. It's very hard for us to accept the humanness of our so-called icons. We expect perfection from them. I don't know, ain't no perfect people walking this earth.
This is true. And it just shows that we spend far too much time in judgment of others and not ourselves.
Right.
Question for you. The question is from Reverend Dr. Roland Stringfellow. He says, this was excellent and would like you to speak more about your writing process and how you are inspired to write these poems.
Mm, mm. Well, my writing process is that usually a I'll get a phrase. I'll get a phrase that describes something I'm feeling or a situation I've seen or something that I want to be instructive. And from that, I'll sit down and I'll think, well, play some music, think about it. Sometimes it comes in a big rush. Sometimes it comes 2 or 3 lines at a time and requires that I go back and revisit what I've written and revise it or change a word because it doesn't have quite the nuance I want it to have, or uh, add something that I forgot that gives you a more complete picture of the message that I'm trying to get out there. And then I just sit and I do it. I either do it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I write the poems, I handwrite them first because there seems to be this connection between the brain and the hand. Um, I write it and I might let it sit and marinate for a couple of days, or I might be satisfied with it then. Some stuff I might even go back years down the road and change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's basically the process that I use. Sometimes a song will inspire me. Sometimes somebody else's work will inspire me. So that brings me to what inspired me from the beginning. It's two
Okay.
things that I think of from my early childhood that inspired me from the beginning. First one is being in second grade at Longfellow Elementary School, and Eloise Culver, the second grade teacher, read E. Cummings in Just Spring.
Mm.
And I could just imagine that. I don't, in Just Spring, when the world is mud luscious. Remember when the mud used to smell?
It did. Got a wonderful smell.
But the descriptive, the vibrancy, the ability to visualize what he was talking about captured my imagination. The second thing that inspired me was stage plays.
Mm.
Back in the day, when schools had auditorium class and they produced plays and they taught the children not only, gave them public speaking skills, gave them the opportunity to get that emotion out, taught them staging, how to make sets, how to run lights. I was fascinated by all of that. And I used to, you know how you bury things sometimes. My cousin reminded me that I used to write plays and make my cousins and sisters perform the parts in the basement at 12831 Montville. I was like, yes, I did that. But those two things, the plays and that Cummings, and then later, as we came into wokeness, which was what back then, Black Power or whatever, and the Harlem Renaissance,
Mhm.
and something that is missing from the school that was quietly removed is a fullness of literature. We read James Baldwin. We read Phyllis Wheatley. We read Booker T. We read all of these various people that the children, some of them probably banned books. But I'm saying that to say that all of that, and then learning about the Harlem Renaissance, that really lit a fire under my creative spirit. And I wanted to be just like I wanted to be Lorraine Hansberry. I wanted to write my own Raisin in the Sun. Well, perhaps it's still to be written. I'm not saying never. Never say never.
Say never. There's always a chance for more creative juices to
Yes.
flow.
Yes.
You speak of the educational system and all the things that we don't have anymore. And you brought to my spirit the memory of growing up in the city and all of the things that we had in schools that they don't have anymore. Uh,
No.
even the tell me how you feel about this latest push by legislature of various states and the U.S. government to limit what is actually taught in school. Um, they're talking about changing how we teach history and not including certain things. And President Biden was the first president to visit uh, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the massacre that happened there in the early 20th century. So I'm curious to know if those news stories are stirring anything in your spirit.
Mm, they're probably stirring the same thing that they've stirred for the last 20 years. Wow. In trouble. When I want to mention, when I talked about auditorium and I talked about that variety of literature that we were exposed to, what I'm, the people may not, because today we seem to be focus all our energy on get a good job, get the money, get the money, get a good job. Well, what happens when you can't? How do you keep yourself out of trouble? These, the arts give you an outlet to express happiness, sadness, frustration. They give a people a way of constructively dealing with the disappointments of life. We don't have that anymore. These kids don't know how to, these young people, not just children in school, young adults. We focus them so much on that. So one of the things I make meals, how to balance a budget, how to do your taxes. Bring some of that back. Teach civics. Have mock elections in the schools. Build that foundation. Put that seed in those in the children is that we can water, and hopefully as they age they will take up the watering themselves to bring it to fruition. So the educational system frustrates me very much. I would not survive in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I already know that.
Life has changed. We have a message to you from Sister Rashida Hilton. That's to you and to everyone, appreciating your words of wisdom and your gift that you've shared with us today. We are so thankful that you are all able to join us in celebrating our poet laureate at Metropolitan Community Church of Detroit, Miss Valerie Elaine Deering. We thank you for your works, and we thank you for your notes from a Nappy Headed Poet, Volume 1, A Song from Mama.
Well, now, since we're talking about that and we're talking about sort of like current events, I want to do the black and tan poem because maybe a lot of people don't understand what that's about. My mother used to tell me My mother grew up in Highland Park, Michigan in the 30s and 40s. Highland Park was overwhelmingly, predominantly white and had outstanding schools. She was one of three people of color in her graduating class. And she used to tell me about black and tans, and she said those were the only clubs where black people and white people could socialize together. And I mentioned it to someone one day, and they said, "Why don't you write a poem about it?" Well, I found out I really did not know enough about it, so I did some research about it, and I spoke to a friend of mine, uh, uh, a white friend of mine, and she said, "Yeah, my mom and daddy told me about those too." So we had, I said, "Oh, I'm on the right track then." And I did my research, and I found out that their black and tans were not along Woodward. They were actually in Black Bottom, which I refer to in the poem as Bottom Black. And it's called Black Bottom because of the how fertile the land was down there. It was that rich, fertile black soil. And when I started researching and found out all of what went on, what was coming out of there then, I said, wow. And it was fertilizing not plants, but it was fertilizing dreams. It was fertilizing hope. It was fertilizing creativity. So that's where this poem, The Black and Tan, comes from. So let me see. Oh, Black and Tan. The seeds from the fruit of the strange fruit tree made their way north and morphed to a new variety, bottom black in a paradise valley back in the day. Same seed, new strand, this now known as Black and Tan. In the clubs and the dance halls it rolled on the wind, the music and the vibe drawing folks in, rich, poor, black, white, the spirit of music and love lit up the night on Hastings and San Antoine, northward bound. It was an indigenous bottom black culture that carried the torch, fueled by the likes of Howlin' Wolf, Dinah, Ray, and of course the Count, Sassy Sarah too. The black and tans made the folks shout, Club Plantation, Brown Bomber Shack. Let the people feel the magic and the light of the real deal. Della, Duke, Billy too, practiced their craft among every hue. Sad to say, the glow of the night didn't cross into day and become bright light. The seed that made its way to the black and tan from the strange fruit, the people that mingled in the night wouldn't be caught together in broad daylight. The culture, the music, and the divine vibe didn't cross into day and spill outside the black and tan. The people that inhabited Paradise Valley and Bottom Black didn't experience the glory of all that. The day was clothed in darkness and despair, vestiges of the DNA that made its way there. Sad to say, much mischief came to play that shut the light shining bright in the black and tans in the bottom black land and a valley called Paradise that lit up the night back in the day when the music held sway and gathered the clans from all over the lands in the black and tan. The mutated gene left the scene that grew from the seed of the southern fruit tree inside the black and tan. Strange fruit Amazing, dismaying of what came to be from the strange fruit that morphed from the southern fruit tree. Now,
We are all part of that mingling and commingling of spirits. And somebody, Rev says, preach now. So we
okay,
have a message that,
Reverend
huh?
C.O. Franklin, there was a place called Joe's Record Shop on Gratiot Avenue that sold the blues. That's the only place he would allow to record his sermons. Aretha Franklin cut her first record tracks in the back of that shack called Joe's. Orchestra Hall used to be Paradise Hall, owned by a black man. What did they do? They didn't give the people no loans to update the property, to improve their surroundings. So they decided that we can urban revitalize that and put I-75 through there and destroy the whole culture. It's Tulsa without the fire and bombs.
That's right. It's a way of disenfranchising a whole group of people. And we understand that we have, was it, someone said, oh, Elizabeth Burns, is it, says that she met you at Mary Grove, if I can back this up and see the whole comment, and that you're still friends today, and she appreciates you sharing your gifts. And we all appreciate the gift that you are and the gifts that you've shared with us today. We thank you for your time. Everyone's time is valuable, and we appreciate you setting aside this moment to speak with us today. Um, we are going to close this interview right now. Oh, you have something else
One
to say?
more.
One more.
This is my this is my finale poem.
Swan song. Okay.
Okay. I think it's appropriate for today.
All right.
It's called Marvin and the Book of Motown.
Okay.
I'm calling it, well, no, it's called Motown and the Book of Marvin. I transposed that, but no, it can only be this way because the What's Going On album could actually be a book in a Bible. It could be Lamentations,
Mhm.
see, the
Mhm.
gospel. I'm telling you, that's a book in the Bible. And Marvin himself said, Smoke, God's writing this thing. And if you listen to it, that is certainly true. So I'm going to do this for you today. Motown and the Book Marvin. The 60s rode in on changing winds, in the street, in the beat that played. The sun was shining on rainy days. The music that was Motown was having its way. Young America rocked. My girl really had a hold on me. There was really no mountain high enough. As we stopped in the name of love, Captain Barry steered a ship, taking the people on a magic music trip, breaking barriers, tearing down walls. The magic of the music touched us all. Yes, we danced in the street, black, white, red, and yellow. The music had a way to make us mellow. Magic, Motown. The bomb it spread helped mend the rifts. When wounds broke open and people bled, the secular was spiritual and kept us fed with healing grace. Still Motown sailed on. As the music began to cross pollinate, it shifted and changed and began to proclaim war. What is it good for? The lyric, the rhythm, and even the tune made us see inner visions in dark rooms. But a stubborn kind of fella who never left the scene, inspired by God in chants, moans, and mystical croons, he delivered songs and we helped him shout. What's going on? It's 50 years later. The question not answered yet resonates profound. God took Marvin, a sanctified mess, and gave him an assignment to put us to the test. And oh, dear Barry, what would he do? To unleash, would he do what's best? To unleash the magic of this musical muse so that he could take us on a prophetic cruise. A cruise with many dockings along the way. Put on the record. Let the music play. Cause it's holy, holy. Talking about God is love. Oh, that book of Marvin. I hear him today, pleading with the people. Save the children. Let that prophetic voice continue to play. The music so lush, magical, varied, and sensual. Truly otherworldly dimensional, prophetic poetry wrapped in lyric. Oh my God. Can't you feel the spirit? Mercy, mercy me. Get your act together. People, can't you see? Flying high in the friendly sky, trying to escape those inner city blues. A witch's brew of destruction and synthetic good feeling. The incessant beat of ceaseless prayer. Oh, the Book of Marvin, rebounding, resounding on notes of love. 50 years. 50 years it's been. And I end this poem with this question again. What's going on?
What indeed is going on? Yesterday is today. We thank you all for your time and for your attention. And most of all, we thank you, Val, for your gifts and for your presence. We are going to end this broadcast now. And thank you once again. Remember that if you are interested in receiving her book and you're here in the city of Detroit, you are welcome to join us for worship at MCC Detroit, 205 North Main Street in Clawson. And you may get her books, limited editions of signed copies of her book for $17.99 at our church. You may contact us at www.mccdetroit.org. Thank you very much. And let you know that if you
Listen,
want to see this interview again, it will be available on our YouTube page. Amen.
amen, ashe, and thank everyone that took the time out of their busy schedules to be with me today, and the church, and God.
Amen. Amen. Have a good day, everyone.